They said my mother was a woman of faith. They said she was strong. They said she carried grace like a crown. But they never lived with her. They never saw how the same hands raised in worship could slam doors with the fury of a storm. They never heard the shouting that came after Sunday service, how she'd switch from hallelujah to you're so ungrateful in seconds flat. They never watched her twist her pain into a weapon and call it discipline. They called her Sister Grace. But at home, she was just Grace, not a mother, not a nurturer, just a woman who seemed to regret everything that made her tied to us. I remember once I was crying, not a tantrum, not for attention, just quietly crying in the corner of the kitchen. My chest hurt from holding it in too long. She looked at me and said, "Melody, you're always so dramatic. God didn't raise you to be weak." But that same night, when she couldn't find her phone charger, she screamed like her world had ended. Threw the remote, called us all selfish, stormed off and didn't talk to anyone for 2 days. We were expected to tiptoe around her moods like landmines. But if we flinched, we were ungrateful. If we cried, we were attention-seeking. If we ever said anything about how she treated us, we were dishonoring her. And the thing is, she always had someone new around. Church people, strangers she was helping, men she barely knew, who ended up sleeping in our rooms while we slept on the floor like shadows. One of them, a man I had never seen before, took my brother's bed. So my brother slept in mine, and I was shoved into her room. She kicked in her sleep, moaned, talked, hit me in the back once hard, and when I flinched, she just rolled over and muttered, "You're a guest in my bed." That word stuck with me. Guest. In her bed. In her house. In her world. I wasn't her child. I was just a problem she didn't abort. I started to learn when to disappear. There were times when the house fell so quiet, I could hear her thoughts before she even spoke. That's how much I'd studied her. I knew the sound of her anger rising. It wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was in the silence. The way she closed the cabinet, a little too softly. The way she stared at her cup like it had betrayed her. Those were the days to make yourself small, unseen. Breathe too loud and she'd snap. Laugh at the wrong time, and she'd say you were mocking her. Cry and she'd call you ungrateful. Once I told her I was feeling sad. Just low. She scoffed. Sad? You, what do you have to be sad about? You don't know what sadness is. Try raising 3 kids alone while the world spits on you. Then talk about sadness. I shrank again. I stopped using the word feelings around her. She treated emotions like sins. If it didn't serve her image or her story of suffering, it wasn't real. She called herself broken but strong. But when I broke, I was a problem. When I had feelings, I was dramatic. When I expressed anything, she acted like I had slapped God himself. I remember once I got a small scholarship, an art contest I secretly entered at school. I was so proud. I brought the certificate home like it was gold. She barely looked at it. "Did they give you money?" she asked. "No, just recognition." "Then what's the point?" she said flatly, tossing it on the table. "Do you think applause will pay your rent when you grow up?" I took it back to my room and put it in a drawer. Later, I ripped it up. I learned that dreams were dangerous around her, not because they were bad, but because they reminded her of everything she never chased, never healed, never believed about herself. And somehow, that became our burden. Every time she struggled, it became a sermon. We were told to listen, to hold space for her tears, her regrets, her tales of how having kids ruined everything. She told us to respect her pain, but she never once respected ours. She once told me, "You kids owe me everything. You should kiss my feet for not leaving you." I wonder if she knew she already had. We were already on our knees. It was a Saturday, the kind where you wake up already bracing yourself. The man she brought home, Brother Kingsley, was still around. 3rd day in a row. He was always lounging in the living room, feet on the center table, remote in hand, talking like he paid rent. He had that kind of voice, loud and oily. Every sentence ended in a fake laugh. And she would join in, almost giddy. She had started cooking again, which meant we had to give up the kitchen. "Don't touch that pot," she snapped when I tried to get a cup of water. So I waited and waited until she left the stove unattended. Then I grabbed a mug. And that was it. "You are so disrespectful, Melody," she shouted, dropping the spoon so hard it splattered oil. "You don't know boundaries. You walk around this house like you own it. You are a guest under my roof." I froze. Guest. Again. She had said that word one too many times. So I turned, heart thudding in my ears, and said not loudly, not rudely, just honestly, "If I'm a guest, then stop expecting me to live like a servant." The room went cold. Even Brother Kingsley went quiet. She stared at me like I had slapped her. What did you say? Her voice trembled, not with fear, with fury. I said I'm tired. I'm tired of being talked down to. Of moving from bed to bed, to make room for strangers. Of being told, I should worship you for not leaving us. Silence. Her hands clenched, her lips curled. And then she said it. You are just like your father. Ungrateful, selfish, a disgrace. That cut deeper than anything else. She had always hated him, the man who left her. The man I barely knew. And now I was him too. I didn't cry, I didn't yell. I just walked away. Into the tiny room I shared with my brother. Closed the door. Locked it. That night she didn't speak to me. The next morning, she slammed the Bible louder than usual and left for church without saying a word. But I heard her whisper under her breath, "That girl is possessed." That was the day I stopped trying to be understood. Because I realized, you can't make someone love you the way you need, when they only see you as a reflection of their pain. After that day, something inside me shut down. I stopped asking, stopped explaining, stopped hoping she'd notice anything other than herself. I still did chores, still played the role, still laughed at the right times when her church friends came around and said things like, "Ah, Sister Grace, your daughter is so well behaved, so quiet, so humble." She'd nod with a half smile like she trained me. But they didn't know I had trained myself to hide, to survive. That week, I started waking up at 3 a.m. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the only time the house was silent, in a way that felt safe. No shouting, no slamming doors, no forced prayers. Just stillness, the kind that made me feel like I belonged to myself again. I'd sit on the floor, back against the wall, legs pulled to my chest, and imagine things. A different house, a different mother, a room that was mine, not borrowed, not shared, not taken by a stranger. I imagined leaving, but I didn't know where I'd go. I had no money, no family that wasn't connected to her, no one who would believe me if I said, "My mother hurts me," not with her hands, but with her silence, her words, her refusal to see me, because she never hit me. So in their eyes she was a good mother, a strong woman of faith, but if they had peeled back even one layer, they would have seen the bruises she left behind weren't on our skin. One day I stood in the mirror and whispered, "You don't owe her your life." Then I said it louder. "You don't owe her your life." It felt like a crime, but it also felt like truth. I started keeping a small notebook tucked inside my pillowcase. I wrote in it every day, not what happened, but what I wished would happen. I'll leave and never look back. I'll sleep on my own bed, in my own space. I'll feel something good and not hide it. I'll be a daughter to someone who sees me. The pages didn't fix anything, but they gave me something my mother never did. Permission to imagine more, to want more, to believe that her voice wasn't the only one that mattered. I didn't plan to leave all at once. It started with small acts of rebellion, barely noticeable to anyone but me. I stopped reacting when she yelled, stopped explaining myself, stopped saying okay just to keep the peace. She noticed. Her eyes followed me more. Her tone changed, not softer, just sharper, like she sensed I was slipping from her grip but didn't know how to tighten it. One morning she said, "You've been quiet, what are you thinking?" I looked her dead in the face and replied, "Nothing I can say out loud." She laughed like it was a joke, but I meant every word. I started applying to jobs secretly. Nothing big, just cafes, supermarkets, anywhere that would take someone still in school with no experience and no references that didn't lead back to her church friends. I knew I couldn't leave without money. I also started putting clothes aside, one shirt tucked under my bed, a toothbrush hidden in my backpack, a pair of shoes I never wore stashed behind the curtain. It was my version of packing. No one noticed. Not my brother, too caught up in his own survival. Not Grace, who was busy parading around brother Kingsley like he was the second coming. One night, I stood in the hallway watching them laugh over dinner like we weren't crumbling inside. She saw me, waved. "Melody, come sit, eat." I didn't move. "Why are you always so stiff?" She muttered, "That girl holds on to things like demons." I smiled tightly and said, "I'm just not hungry." But I was starving. For peace. For space. For a life that didn't require me to bleed, just to be allowed in the room. I went back to my room, locked the door, and whispered to myself, "You're almost free, just hold on a little longer." And I believed it, for the first time ever. Not as a hope, but as a plan. It wasn't the job of my dreams. It was a small bakery tucked between two faded shops, with cracked windows and the smell of yeast baked into the walls. But when the manager, a tired-looking woman named Mama Talou, handed me an apron and said, "Start tomorrow," I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Not happiness, not yet. But the kind of relief that tastes like air after holding your breath too long. I didn't tell Grace. I left early the next morning, wearing jeans she hated and a plain shirt. She called after me from the kitchen. Where are you going dressed like that? Library, I lied. Group project. She grunted and went back to stirring something in a pot like I wasn't worth a follow-up question. Perfect. The bakery was loud and chaotic and smelled like burnt sugar and rising dough. But no one shouted at me. No one asked me to sacrifice anything. No one told me I was too much. I learned how to knead, how to sweep flour off tile, how to count change fast with sticky fingers. For 4 hours, I was just melody. Not dramatic, not difficult, not possessed. Just a girl learning how to stand. When I got home, sweaty and tired but light for the first time in forever, she was waiting. So you're back, what did you study today? A lot, I said simply. She squinted at me. My face was too calm. My voice too steady. She could feel it, the distance. Don't start getting ideas, Melody. She said, the devil loves idle girls. I smiled. Then it's a good thing I'm not idle anymore. She didn't respond. Just turned her back and muttered something about ungrateful children and how she should have left us long ago. But I didn't hear the words this time. Because I had flour in my hair. And 2,000 naira in my pocket. And my name, for once, didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a beginning. It lasted exactly 12 days. 12 quiet mornings, 12 secret shifts, 12 slow, steady steps toward something that felt like freedom. Then on the 13th day, Grace found the apron. I'd tucked it deep in my bag, folded tight, but not tight enough. She stormed into my room while I was still half asleep, holding it like it was a weapon. What is this? She snapped. I sat up, blinked. No use lying now. It's mine, I said. I got a job. Her eyes widened like I just told her I was pregnant by a demon. You've been sneaking out of this house to go and sweep floors for strangers. Without my permission, without telling your mother. I'm 17, not 7, I said. Wrong answer. She slammed the door behind her and launched into a full sermon. Not one from the Bible, but from her heart. The bitter, rotting part of it. Do you think I suffered through labor, just for you to disgrace me like this? To run off like a prostitute, and come back smelling like yeast and rebellion. She said I was becoming like my father, selfish, secretive, shameful. She said I was allowing the devil to whisper lies into my head. That women who chase independence end up cursed and alone. I just stood there, because if I opened my mouth, I'd scream. She took my bag, my apron, my little envelope of cash, 2,000 naira. Hard-earned, gone in a blink. I begged just once. Please give it back. She looked at me like I was trash under her shoe. You'll eat in this house, you'll sleep in this house, but you will not disgrace it. That night, I cried into my pillow until it was soaked. Not because of the money, not even the job, because for a moment, I had something that was mine, and she ripped it away like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. But what she didn't know was that I had made a copy of the bakery number. And what she didn't understand was that once a girl tastes freedom, even for 12 days, she will never forget the flavor. I didn't cry the next morning. I packed. Not a suitcase, not a dramatic scene. Just a plastic bag. 2 changes of clothes. My sketchpad. And the little notebook I had written dreams in for months. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew where I wasn't staying. She thought taking my money, my apron, my job would stop me. But she didn't know what she'd awakened the moment she took something I earned with my own hands. You can't unburn wood once it's on fire. I waited until she left for her night prayer meeting. She had no idea I had made a copy of the bakery number before she burned the paper. I walked across town with sandals scraping the back of my feet. Heart pounding, bag clenched like it held gold. It was dark when I arrived. Mama Talu opened the door, surprised. You again. I nodded. She found out. She took everything. She didn't ask who she was. Maybe she didn't need to. She looked at me for a long moment, then stepped aside. Come in, you can stay in the storeroom for now. It wasn't a bedroom, just a narrow room with shelves of flour, sugar, and margarine tubs. But it was quiet. And it was mine. I sat on the folded sack she gave me and cried silently, not from fear but release. I wasn't hiding anymore. I had chosen this. That night, I wrote in my notebook. Day 1, I left, I'm gone. And even if I go back someday, I'll never return. I fell asleep to the smell of bread rising. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't ask my brother where I'd gone. Not because she didn't care, but because she was waiting for me to crawl back, broken and sorry. What she didn't know was, I may have left with nothing, but I walked away with the only thing she never gave me. Myself. It took her 4 days. 4 days of silence before she showed up at the bakery. Mama Tulu called me from the front. Her face was unreadable. Your mother's outside. I froze. She stood at the doorway, wrapped in her church shawl. Arms folded, eyes already judging the walls, the smell, the air. So this is what you left me for, she said coldly. I didn't answer. A storeroom, flour and strangers. You think this is freedom, you'll come crawling back soon. And when you do, I won't make it easy. Still, I said nothing. Not because I had no words, but because I knew anything I said would be twisted into a weapon. She sighed deeply, loud, like it was for a crowd that wasn't there. Your siblings miss you. I can't keep covering for your foolishness. I raised you better than this. That's when I looked her dead in the eyes and said, you didn't raise me, you survived me. She blinked. For the first time, no words came out. Then she turned and walked away. No hug, no tears, no apology. But I didn't need them anymore. Because when she walked away, she took with her the last piece of power she had over me. 6 months passed. I still slept in the storeroom, but it started to feel like a room. Mama Tulu let me paint the walls, gave me a key. I had saved enough to buy a second-hand phone. And one day, I looked in the mirror and saw a girl I recognized, not as someone's daughter, but as someone I'd chosen to become. Grace never apologized, never visited again. She sent one message through my brother. Tell her I'll pray for her. That was it. No sorry, no reflection. Just more religion to excuse what she never faced. And that was fine, because I no longer needed her healing to begin mine. The bakery opened early every day, and each morning I unlocked the doors, tied my apron, and watched the sunrise through a foggy glass window that didn't belong to her. I was finally home, not in a house, but in a life I built with my own hands. And for the first time ever, silence didn't mean danger. It meant peace.